Hello, welcome to a special episode of The Arena. With this market being a battle, we want to bring on experts that are going to help you fight and win that battle. Today I wanted to bring on Brian and Amir from the Val Nunnenkamp team. I want to have a real candid conversation because right now we're seeing a shift in the market and things going on that frankly people are afraid of. They want answers, and what better answers to get than two people that are the boots on the ground in the market every day. So we're going to get into it. Welcome, Brian and Amir. Thanks so much for being on.
Awesome to be here.
Thank you.
Really, welcome to my office and sitting in my lounge.
Very cozy. We like it.
A little bit more relaxed, right?
It's great.
Yeah.
So, we were just talking off camera and just discussing the market in general. There's so much to go over, but I think just hitting on the main topic, which has been just, I guess, the topic for years now, that's inventory. And I think with everybody so focused on buyers and the issues they're having, rates are higher, again, what houses are they going to find? A lot of people forget a lot of those buyers have to be sellers first. Mm-hmm. So if you're someone that's sitting there going, wow, I'm sitting on so much equity right now. And I think a lot of people don't even realize how much equity,
Right.
Which is a great problem to have, but it's still a problem. Mm-hmm. So I just want to know, what are you actually saying to these people when I know you're having consultations, both of you. What are you saying to them when they have to sell first, and how are you protecting them, and what's the game plan?
So it's a common question. A lot of people are on the fence right now. They're nervous because of the inventory issue. So they don't know where they're going to go, if they're going to be able to find a house, what they can do. So there's a couple options we do there. We sit with a lot of clients and talk about this almost weekly. The first thing is obviously if a seller is nervous that they need to sell and they don't know where they're going to go. There's the first option would be, okay, list your home and it's contingent upon finding suitable housing. So we actually just went into a multiple bid against each other on the same property.
Yeah.
And
Did you rock, paper, scissors it?
No, he said
we
let's
said,
wrestle.
We said
let's
wrestle.
box.
He said let's box.
You don't want to wrestle. You don't want
I
to
don't want to
wrestle
wrestle him. That's why I said let's box.
We were literally
like, let's go
texting
around
each
the
other on
beach.
the way to the property, and I'm like, let's wrestle for it. He's like, how about box?
I'm not wrestling him.
He's going to win every time.
Lose. I know.
He's going to knock you to the ground. You're
I
done.
know.
Yeah. See, what did you do?
So, in that situation, right, multiple bid situation, this isn't our seller, right? We had buyers on this side. But this listing agent was making it, very knowledgeable that this home is contingent upon the sellers finding suitable housing. So your buyer, if they're not flexible and they don't have an open time span to close on this property, shouldn't even be making an offer. So that's something you can always put into the contract, protects the seller. They don't have to worry about getting stuck and forced out of their home if they don't find a home. But they can go under contract. Now they have that contract in place, and then they can be seriously searching for a home, and they have time to find one without the stresses of having a time constraint on that.
Now, is that something that you guys are writing into the contract, or are you recommending they get an attorney?
Well, when it comes to that, we usually have an attorney do it after the fact. So we'll write it into the baseline of the contract. But then once we're under contract and we go into the attorney review period, we'll send it over just to make sure it's all buttoned up in the correct way so that they're fully protected.
And that brings me over, Amir, I know you're predominantly working with buyers.
Sure.
And is that a conversation you're having with them on how to be a little bit more flexible in your timeline? If you you want to buy a house, whether it's moving in 30 days or 6 months, seems to be like that's a big deal when you're putting those offers in.
Sure. Well, on the buy side, it really comes down to the client because, like you guys were saying, the flexibility has to be there, right? If the buyer isn't flexible, if they have a lease coming up that's going to end, maybe we'll have the conversation of, do you have a temporary, maybe a family member's house to spend some time with for a month or two? Can you extend the lease for another month or two to try to buy yourself some time? But one thing, I want to flip the conversation, kind of go back to where you guys were at. It's so interesting when it comes to the sales side that A, a lot of the agents aren't having this conversation, and B, nor are they educated or can educate the seller on this, is no one has a conversation on, can you buy your next home being non-contingent? No one's having that conversation. A, have you reached out to a mortgage lender or a bank to see, can you buy your next property being non-contingent? That's what I basically did in the last 2 years, is trying to educate the seller on, hey, if you can go get a pre-approval letter, non-contingent, meaning you qualify, your debt-to-income ratio is right to where you can buy the next one, non-contingent, leave the rest to me. So basically what we do is you stay at your home at your comfort.
Yeah.
You start to shop. We know your home is going to sell quickly because it's the seller's market. We go out, we start shopping. The second we get you under contract, we're out of attorney review. We quickly do your home inspection. We know this is a solid deal. It's going to go through. Your house is on the market within 24 hours. We sell, and then what we do is we coordinate those two settlements so that you can go in the morning, sell on your house, get the proceeds. So you're still you're non-contingent, but you still need the proceeds from your house. I've done that so many times that I can't describe to you. And it seems very complicated. Most agents are too afraid to take that risk because there's a lot involved. But if you first can educate them on, hey, have you talked to a lender to see if you can go non-contingent? Just because you own a home doesn't mean you have to be contingent, right? So we can still use the proceeds from your house, but you can go and shop non-contingent. We'll settle on your house the day before, the morning of. We'll take the check, close on the next one. It's a no-brainer.
This is why I wanted to have you guys on, because there's so many ways to structure these things.
Yes.
And I, it's funny because we have buyers all the time that come to us and want to get pre-approved, and they're saying, well, our agent is our uncle, our cousin, I just had an investor actually who was buying a property, and he ended up having to do the majority of the communication with the listing side because his cousin didn't have the experience.
You just don't get it.
And that's why it's unfortunate if you're a new agent. I know it's tough to begin with, but now it's even tougher because if you don't know these tricks, if you don't know the way to structure these things, you're probably not going to get your buyer under contract. And then also, if you're dealing with, I guess, the listing side, so if you have an agent come to you and they don't know how to structure it, what are you going to do all the work for them? Whereas if you have another buyer with that agent who does know how to structure things and work the game and know how to do it, you're going to go with them.
Yeah, much smoother process, easier all around.
And look, to add on to that, if you're a new agent, stop trying to negotiate 10%. Right, take the 50%.
What, 10% commission?
No, not 10%. But hey, I want to start at 75. I want to start at 70. Take the 50. Join a team, a reputable team, a good mentor that can help you get these buyers under contract, teach you the ropes. I mean, without my team, I wouldn't have known any of this.
Amir, I know we were talking earlier. You said, Brian's not much to look at, but he actually is a decent mentor and has definitely helped you kind of build where you are now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. It's true.
Just to circle back to that, right? So there's, like you said, there's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
Right. Another one that we do all the time with our sellers that do need the proceeds. So say they do what Amir did, and they just don't meet the debt-to-income ratios. They can't buy without selling their house, and they need the proceeds from that home. And, maybe it's not in a super desirable area. Maybe they can't be contingent upon finding suitable housing. It's going to hurt the sales price of their house. We'll do rent backs. So now what happens is put the house up for sale. We close on the house, but there's a clause in the contract that the property is going to be rented back to the sellers, usually at the cost of the buyer's new mortgage, for 60 days. So now they have their proceeds. They're no longer a contingent buyer.
They have a little breathing room.
Cash in the bank, and they've got 2 months to find a house. Maybe 3 from the time they're actually under contract to the time they close. So it gives them anywhere from 3.5 to 4 months from the time they're under contract to the time they actually need to move. So no stress, money in the bank, home is actually closed on, and they get to stay in their home. They're not put out to a hotel or have to move in with family. So it really helps.
That's awesome. And then I know the other part I wanted to mention on the number side, and Amir, we were just having this discussion, was recasting. And a recast is you buy you have the house to sell. Okay, in a perfect world, you're going to sell and buy on the same day. Great. And sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
If that can't happen, are you contingent or not? Because it really is so important. And by the way, if you call a Rocket, an online lender, there are ways on our side to make you non-contingent that they may not know and they may not do. It could be as simple as just paying off a few things, right? Maybe you have that engagement ring that's $500 a month that you're paying, or some other debt, or whatever it might be. Maybe you only owe $5,000 left on your car, and imagine you pay that off. What does that do to your debt ratios?
Yeah, now you're non-contingent,
So-
and then you could do exactly what we were talking about.
Right. You could do these 2-1 buy downs. You could do. There's so many other ways to do it. But anyway, in a perfect world, you would sell buy. If you can't do that, and you buy first. And let's say you're like, well, I only have enough to put 5% down on that sale, but I have $100,000 of equity. And again, in a perfect world, you would just buy it with that $100,000. You could recast your mortgage. So you take the $100,000, you buy first. Great, you're in the house. Focus on selling, and now you're going to get your best offer. Pressure's off, and you take that $100,000 or whatever it is. You could recast your mortgage, and then now your payments where you want it, no PMI, the loan amounts where you want it, all that stuff. All the numbers are the way you wanted it, and you just had a temporary situation until you sold that house. So
Now,
is
there
that's
a time frame on that for the recasting? So you can do that in a year or 3 months.
You can do it as
doesn't
many
matter.
times as you want. I think it's a $5,000 minimum lump sum payment, and I think it costs like $150 to do the recast.
That's
It's a
awesome.
no-brainer. I mean, that's
Huge.
wonderful. I like what you were talking about too, about the rent back option.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation with one of my buyers, and it's funny because the rent back, a lot of buyers might feel like, what's in it for me, right? Like, that's kind of scary. I'm going to sell you my house and then let you rent it, like stay in my house. It's kind of a weird subject, but think about it this way. A rent back option is not only great for the seller, it's great for the buyer for a couple different reasons. A, if you weren't doing a rent back and it was contingent upon seller finding suitable housing, you're dealing with a rate lock, right? So you're paying all this money out of pocket to, let's say this person takes 3 months, 4 months. Now you're having to talk to your lender every 30 days. They're like, hey, you're gonna have to pay X amount.
There's
per
only so
day.
much we can extend that
There's
rate.
only so much you can extend it for, so you're running into that issue of spending that money on the rate lock. 2, you pay for the appraisal and you pay for the inspection. If it's contingent upon seller finding suitable housing, well, guess what? In 3 months, if the seller doesn't find a house, decides not to sell, you lost all the money for the inspection, you lost all the money for the appraisal, and then you were going to have to end up paying all that money for the extension of the loan. So doing a rent back option is even better for the buyer than having a contingent seller, because
Guarantees them a place.
Guarantees them a place, and then they rent it back, and it's a no-brainer for both sides.
And again, I got to tell you, there are agents out there that just don't even know what a rent back is.
No clue.
And we're the ones bringing it up. We're like, we're the lender. We shouldn't be the ones to it. So I can't say it enough. I mean, you got, especially in this
it's
market.
problem solving, man. It's finding what the problem is and being able to solve it. Most agents can't do that. Most teams can't do that. Most lenders cannot do that. I literally can't tell you how many times I take a loan to a mortgage company for whatever reason. Again, I'm not, I don't know. They can't do it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take it to Bob. I take it to Bob. Bob's like, yeah, I get it. They get it done in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, it's being able to problem solve. Like, I just dealt with a house that was on the market for 5 months. I had an FHA state grant buyer. This house has a cesspool. Any buyer's agent looking at that listing is just going next. As a cesspool, you can't sell it. They're FHA, they're state grant. I mean, there's so much involved with that being able to work that no agent would spend the time to try to get that deal together. I pulled it off. Like, just simple knowledge, communication, networking, talking to people, and
just working the problem.
Working out the problem. I worked out the problem. I mean, there was a lot involved, but I worked it out. And I got these people under contract, happy seller. It's been on the market for 5 months. She has the dough. She's happy to put a new septic in.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I have a buyer that's excited about having 2 acres of land and a brand new septic tank.
Yeah.
So I used that 5 months as leverage. I called her. I said, hey, now you have a cesspool and you're saying it's buyer's responsibility, but you've been on the market for 5 months. Are you willing to put a new septic in if I send you an offer? She calls me back 2 hours later. Yeah, I'll put a new septic in. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Let's lock it in.
Communication.
So I want to switch things up a little bit. Another conversation we were having, and it's something that I'm reading more and more about. The article just came out in Housing Wire saying that institutional investors are pooling over $100 billion to buy properties this year. And we're not talking 100-unit apartment complexes. They already own them.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're talking normal single-family homes. It's like, well, first, this always goes to our point. Real estate's a safe investment. Yeah. They know it. And by the way, not to put our tinfoil hats on, but these same investors happen to own a lot of media companies who happen to be saying that the market's going to crash.
Yeah.
Funny how that works, right?
Have to get their foot in the door.
Yeah, right.
Funny how that works. So, Brian, you were saying that you had a story about that,
Yeah.
where you have these big time investors coming in and bullying people.
Yeah, so this is something where it's happening. Look, the institutional investors now are looking at other asset classes to put their money in, right? So obviously they've invested in stocks and multifamily,
Crypto,
maybe some crypto.
maybe a little bit.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing with that. They're telling you it's horrible, and they're buying that too.
Of course.
But they're looking for other areas to put their money, and they know that real estate is one of the most sound investments they can make. And they've already gobbled up that multifamily market. It's very hard to break into as a single, one-man investor or small company. You have to have big amounts of money. But now they're breaking into the single-family home market. And this has been happening for years now. I would say the past 3 to 4 years, big time. So I used to work through a company, actually a bank, U.S. bank. Okay, these guys went from owning 0 single-family homes to 16,000 single-family homes across the country in a 2-year period.
Oh my God.
Then what they did is packaged up the entire package of fully rented single-family homes, and they sold them off into huge, Black Rocks and hedge funds and whoever else wanted to own these fully occupied single-family rental homes. Their MO there, and this is me talking to very low men on the totem pole there, but I was doing rentals through them. They wouldn't sell any of their properties. They were taking every single home that foreclosed that they had on their books, and rather than selling these homes back out on the open market, they were renovating them and renting them.
Yeah.
This is talking about WI.
Yeah. So they went from, and Amir worked with these guys. I mean, we had 50 or 60 rentals just coming. And all we did was cover a small portion of New Jersey. They were in 40 states. So, and they're just accumulating these properties from the homes that are on their books. So they're never even getting to the market, which is another region we have really low inventory right now, because those homes that would have typically came back onto the market and been picked up by single investors like myself or Amir or whoever,
Right.
are no longer even getting an opportunity to buy those, and they're not being recirculated into the market.
Not to mention, they can go in if they pay a little bit more. What do they care? It's a long-term play.
Yeah.
They're still going to make the money on the rent. They know rent's going up. They know values are going up. So they're pricing out everybody else that might have a limited budget or wants to get a deal.
Right.
It's scary. Now, I've read a lot of comments on social media saying, oh, these guys want to turn us into a nation of renters, and it's this whole conspiracy. I just think it's greed. It's just profit. These are for-profit companies.
It's like you said, it'll be like England. Everyone will rent.
Yeah. I said we're going to like a Europe situation where 80% of the people are going to be
just
renters.
renting. We were just talking about this.
Only the lords are going to own real estate.
The Lord.
The Lord.
Yeah. Well, it is scary, and when we say this and people are watching, it's like we don't want to cause panic or fear.
No.
I guess it's more if you do have the ability to buy. If you're one of these people that are sitting back going, I'm going to wait for rates to come back down.
Yeah.
I'm going to let the market cool off a little bit. The pandemic was crazy. There's no way it's sustainable to see a 20% increase in values and then another 10 and then continue to see that rise. There's no way. It's going to drop just like Bitcoin, right?
Right.
But I'm not seeing it. I mean, you guys tell me, are you seeing?
No.
Okay, you have houses out right now, even like okay houses. Are we multiple bids? What's happening?
Yeah. So it's exactly right. Look, the people that are saying, I'm going to wait for the drop, they're the people that wait forever and then end up paying 40% more than they could have paid 2 years ago. And it's the same. It's a common theme. We don't see a drop. We see extremely low inventory. And there's multiple factors that go into that, not just the institutional buyers, but there's a lot of other reasons. But, the inventory is never going to come back to the levels that it was 10 or 12 years ago. We're at historically low levels, and it's going to be extremely difficult to get back.
Well, we have people with low rates that might not have a huge need to move.
Right.
Right? You have builders that really can't, especially around here, they're not building that much. It's not keeping up with demand.
Right.
So you're always going to be playing that catch up. And I've always said there's all these charts, but basically anything over 6 months inventory, it's a buyer's market.
Right.
Anything under 6 months inventory, it's a seller's market. And we've been like 2 months, 1.9, 1.8
Right.
for years now.
For years, and I don't see it changing. And look at how many people are we? Lost my train of thought there.
That's why we're just having a conversation.
It's good for phone checks. See what's
Yeah,
going
my
on.
phone blew up. And
Oh, cut that. No, we can't edit anything. So
Fine.
they're just going to be like, oh, Brian doesn't know what he's talking about.
You can't edit it, so just
But we're not. We're
No,
not
we're not.
editing. We're pushing right
We're just
through.
pushing right
Billy.
through. I think that's what's amazing about these types of conversations. It just
Yeah.
feels real.
Yeah.
You know, watching this, you can, you
No,
feel like you're kind of
it's
sitting
true.
down with us. But I agree as well. I mean, it's not going to slow down. It hasn't. The multiple bids have not gone away. I think right now, anyone that's kind of interested in kind of getting out is your time now, especially before the spring market, because that's going to be even harder.
yeah. And look, I read an interesting stat the other day, and this is I got back my thought
There
process.
it is.
So
Oh, yeah, you're pushing 40.
yeah, I'm getting there, 35. So population growth, right, is something we never talk about.
Yeah.
But when you look at the population growth from, baby boomers, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y, whatever they are, right? We've got now, from 12 years ago, 20 million more age-appropriate home buyers that are in the market that were not in the market 12 to 15 years ago. And if we think that that's going to change or that trajectory is going to stop, it's not. Because in 10 to 15 more years, there's going to be 40 million more home buyers than there are on the market right now.
I did a video on this. Follow me at It's Matt Boyce on Instagram and TikTok. So I did this video, and it was going back to birth rates.
Right.
And the years, I'll go this way, the years of the birth rates just kept going up. And it's like, okay, average age of a first-time home buyer now, I think is like 33. And it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
every year you get more and more people. That's a lot of people living in their mom's basement. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
They
yeah.
want to get out.
Yep.
They want to get in the market. A lot of them are getting decent jobs and they're saving money. And then think about if you get a job out of college and you wait from 25 to 33 living at your parents' house, it's a good amount of savings you can build up too.
Yeah.
So you have everyone keeps saying, where are these buyers coming from that can afford 20% down and all these, that's them.
Right.
And they're just waiting a little bit longer. I'm going to be real. I mean, when I bought my first house at 25, it was 0% down. I was in the business.
Yeah.
My rate was 6.5%. What did I care?
Right.
I was moving out of my mom's house.
Right.
And so it was like, I just wanted to get in there
Right.
and play beer pong in peace.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was my whole
Right.
motivation in life,
Yeah.
was just to be able to act like an idiot and play beer pong. And then I quickly realized that wasn't fun when you had to work and then start going to bed at 9 o'clock at night. But
Paid a mortgage.
But you're absolutely right. You have all these people in the market. You have these institutional investors in the market. And I guess the theme out of this is, if you even remotely want to get in the real estate market and buy and sell anywhere, or just buy and you don't have anything to sell, game plan is important.
Sure.
Knowing your numbers,
Yeah.
that's why we do the blueprint, what's your max. And it's funny because a lot of lenders, again, you go to a Rocket, I keep bringing them up because I just hate them. But if you go to a Rocket and you're like, oh, I want to get pre-approved, what do? They go, okay, well, what do you want to buy? I want to buy a $300,000 house. What do you know?
Right.
I mean, you might know a little bit, but you don't really know. So you're good for $300,000. Are you really? Right. Maybe your max is $600,000. Well, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, 600 because we go off gross income, and we're not taking into consideration all your other expenses. But maybe 600 is, and based on where you want to be payment-wise, being creative, paying some things off, paying things down. Now maybe you could really qualify for $450 pretty easily.
Sure.
So, and then we have these 2-1 rate buy downs, 3-1 buy downs now. There's so many cool things that we could do as a team, between the lender, between the agents.
Right.
So I guess it's get the game plan, get started, always step number one, and then take that information and do what you want with it.
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
All right,
Get it.
final words. Get your crystal balls out. All right, we have this year, definitely, I would love to know your thoughts. And then next 5 years, where are we going? Amir, go. What do you think?
I think this year is going to be a good replication of probably what happened last year. Maybe not as crazy. We're still the spring market's going to come. We're going to have tons of multiple bids, low inventory, lots of buyers. The same kind of story we've had in the last 2 years. I think over the next 5 years, as you were saying, everyone feels like there's some kind of bubble that's going to burst. Prices are going to drop. None of that's going to happen. Maybe eventually in time within the next 3 years, prices are all going to stay at its very high peak because comps are there. And what's going to happen is maybe it'll become a little bit less competitive per se. So potentially you might not be getting into multiple bids and having to pay maybe $20,000 to $30,000 over. Maybe you'll just pay top dollar for the house, whatever the value it is at that time. But I just don't foresee anything having drastically dropping or having a bubble that's going to burst.
Right.
Prices are going to continue to go up. Maybe not as drastic. It'll be a little bit less. We'll go back to your average per year, and that's what I see happening.
And I'll play devil's advocate. People watching you right now are going, yeah. Well, I know my neighbor's house went for $100,000 over where it should have. There's no way that thing is going to continue to appreciate. Would you say there's probably some outliers out there that probably got caught up in a frenzy in a bidding war, probably went too much? Those are the ones that aren't going to be seeing an immediate appreciation.
Correct.
But you probably say for the most part, the normal houses, the houses that went multiple bid, went for a healthy amount over asking, they're the ones that are probably a safe investment.
100%. Because if majority of the neighborhoods, when we do our diligence prior, whether it's for the buyer or the seller, we look at comps, because I even do that for all my buyers. I want to educate you right away. How much do you think the house will go for? I'm like, let me show you. I want to show you the numbers. So I'll pull 6 months to a year sometimes just to see where the numbers are at. There's always that one guy that's like 550 in a 495 neighborhood. There's always that one person that kind of just went absolutely bizarre, like crazy the last 2 years. But there's also, in that 495 neighborhood, there's also going to be a lot of 520s, 515s, 495s. So we'll do an average and all of that. And yeah, those guys are going to be just fine. Continue in the next 5 years, they'll continue to grow every year. Just a little bit. And it's not going to be crazy like how it was, but they will 100% grow. And that 550 guy might have to wait a couple of years.
So optimistic. Where are you, Brian?
So, I think we have pretty similar thought processes there. I would say my short term and long term. So for short term, all right, what does everyone always say? This is not financial advice.
Yeah.
But
no, everyone's going to sue you.
yeah.
I lost equity. What do?
I would say the next year, right? I think we shot up straight for 2 years, okay? I think this year we've sort of hit a plateau where we're going to have some slight increase in prices, but nothing drastic like we've seen. Not a 20% increase like we've seen over the past 2 years. I think the competitiveness, though, in the marketplace is going to remain, just like it has been for the past 2 years. But I think the volume of transactions is going to be down because of the inventory situation.
Correct.
So I think there are plenty of buyers out there that want the properties, but there's just not enough for everyone. So the total number of volumes I do think is going to be down, but the competitiveness is going to remain.
And if you need to be competitive, you need to make sure you're positioning yourself to be the top dog when you're going in multiple bid.
Right.
How are you presenting your offer? How are you pre-approved? What are your numbers looking like? How to make you the strongest buyer possible.
Yep. The right lenders, the right agents, the right team. It's a team that you need to hire when you're looking to purchase or sell a property. And that team is the people that are going to guide you and make sure that it's done the correct way.
All right, well, right lenders, right team. How do we get in touch with you guys? What's the best way? What's your personal... No, I'm just kidding.
We'll give you our personal
cell phone.
right.
What's your beeper number?
Right.
You can mail me at... I would say social media, obviously. So Instagram, you can find us on Instagram at the Val Nunnenkamp team on Instagram or Facebook, TikTok as well. That's the best place to find it. It has all of our information, our link trees, etc. And then personally, I'm Brian.Colonna on Instagram, and Amir is on there as well.
Yep.
And in the magic of editing, we're going to put everything up too.
Yep.
And don't forget, at It's Matt Boyce. I don't know what camera I'm looking at, but at it, it's no, and maxloans.com is a great place to start because we love that. I don't care if you're buying 3 years from now.
Yep.
I keep telling people that.
Yeah.
One, I'm going to take the biggest argument out and excuse. We do not pull hard credit pulls.
There you go.
Soft credit has zero impact on your scores, just like Credit Karma would do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just lets us dive in, do all the numbers, send you the options. Then you could go ahead and have a conversation with these guys. And how much better of a conversation is it when you know your max, you know your sweet spot. Look, payment was I want to be here. I think I'm going to get a raise. I'm going to get married. I got this and that. There's so many factors that in the next year might then take you from a $300,000 buyer to a $500,000 buyer.
Right.
In the meantime, you save money, you get a gift. So many things you could do. But if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to plan right now?
Absolutely. I mean, the roadmap is crucial. And it's funny you bring that up because yesterday I pull up to the office and I get out of my car and a client of mine that I sold her house 2-3 years ago is walking down the sidewalk. I'm like, hey, what's going on? How are you? She's like, oh, everything's good. We're just chatting casually. And she's like, hey, you know, we sold a few years back and I'm renting right now. My lease is up in July. And so I was thinking of calling you this summer because I'm probably going to buy a house. I'm like, do not call me this summer. Like, I'm glad I ran into you. Let's get you started. We need to get you connected with a lender. We need to get a game plan in place because you're really there. Like 6 months, it's going to come quick.
Yeah.
You need to get your pre-approval. You need to get your blueprint. You need to know what's going on. And then we got to start house hunting. So you're right there. Do not wait till 2 months before you have to buy. A year, 2 years is not too soon.
Great. It's probably the best advice there is.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
And there's a way, you don't want to sound salesy. You don't want to sound pushy. You don't want to create fear. But it's not that. It's just being educated, knowing your numbers, knowing your options, and then you make that decision.
Right.
How are you going to make the right decision when you don't know anything?
Well, you don't know. Yeah.
You're sitting there Googling things, and you can't do it.
There's so much that's involved. Look, if you have the intention of buying in 6 months and you wait till a month or two before to call a lender, you might quickly find out you don't even qualify.
Right.
Where if you would have called 6 months ago, the lender could say, hey, this is what I want you to do. Go pay this off. Go open this credit card. Save more money. So you can game plan. I in my experience, the most successful buyers are buyers that got pre-approved a year ago.
Yep.
You know, they did their diligence. They understand what their debt-to-income ratio is. They understand how much they have to save. They understand their options. And then they can kind of pan them all out and see what's best for them. I mean, there's so much available to you. And if you're not willing to get educated way ahead of time and start to game plan, then you're going to fall short.
I love it, guys. Thanks so much for your insight. Just to wrap things up, and my insight and my quick prediction, I've been saying for a long time, when inflation comes down, mortgage rates will follow. So we're seeing inflation come down. It was at 9.1, it's at 6.5. We're predicting it to go lower and lower. Actually, by June, we're predicting a pretty nice inflation report to come out. What's that going to do to rates? Rates are going to go to where they were at 7.5, now they're in the mid 6s. Now they're going to probably be in their 5s, maybe 4s. So what happens though? What's the catch-22 to that? They come down, affordability goes up. What happens? Buyers flood back into the market.
Correct.
So that's why it's so important. Be ready to pull the trigger. Know your options, know your numbers, have a team ready, and just now you're ready. You're locked and loaded. So until next time, guys, we'll have more and more people on, experts that are going to help you navigate this crazy market. And we will have that on and potentially be in the lounge, potentially be in the studio. Who knows? But thanks so much for tuning in today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, this is my bad side. Can we redo the whole show over there? I want to do that. I want to do that seat.